The one-page CV rule is an absolute myth, and two-page CVs, they get 48% more interviews than one-page CVs. It's the same candidate, the same applications, even the same companies. The only thing that changed was their CV that got an extra page. And that number comes from a study that analysed 39,000 real CVs across thousands of candidates. And the same study pulled interview rates for 8 different attributes of a CV, including length, tailoring, summary content, bullet count, education, certifications, years of experience, and even employment gaps. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through all 8 findings, including the bullet count where interview rates climb to 9%. So the one-page rule is just the start. Stuffing your CV with certifications just doesn't move the needle. Stacking up master's degrees, it gives almost no return on investment. And the data shows that the things that actually drive interviews are different. And the gap between doing your CV right and doing it wrong is a 2x interview rate. And that's the difference between sending 50 applications and getting 2 interviews compared to getting almost 4 or 5. So let me start with the biggest single lever in determining your interview rate. And it's actually not the one-page rule, it's something else entirely. So the first finding is tailoring. So tailored CVs interview at 4.23%, untailored at 2.07%. That's a clean 2x. And it's the biggest single thing the study found across every attribute they looked at. But tailoring doesn't mean what most candidates think it means. Now, most people, when they say, tailor your CV, they start writing a totally different CV for every single role. 5 companies, 5 totally different CVs. And what actually happens is that the CV ends up being inconsistent, half-finished, and then visibly templated. Now, the right version is this. So you pick one specific target role, not a category, like an actual role. So for example, like if you wanted to be a product analyst with a retail specialism, or finance analyst in M&A, or a software engineer in fintech, then you build one strong core CV anchored to that role. Then the job title that appears in your summary. The skills section reflects what the role actually needs. And your bullets emphasize the experience that matches. And then when a specific job description emphasizes one thing, say SQL appears in every bullet, you do a small tweak to bring SQL further up your skills section. That's tailoring, not rewriting your entire CV every time. So picking one target, building it strong, and adjusting at the margin. And most candidates make the opposite mistake. They switch from one CV to building a different version for every single application. And whilst doing that, their response rate doesn't go up. It actually slows down because they're applying to too many different job titles in the first place. And then the CVs just end up looking like everybody else's. So now let's move on to the second finding, which is numbers in your summary. So CV summaries that include a hard numerical figure interview at 6.97%, whereas summaries with no numbers, they interview at 4.78%. That's a 1.5x lift from putting one number in 2 opening lines. So the number can be a revenue figure, a percentage, a headcount, a saving, or a growth. But it has to be specific, hard, and verifiable. And the reason this works is signal. So a summary that says experienced operations analyst with strong stakeholder skills gives the recruiter nothing. A summary that says operations analyst with 3 years of experience driving 4.2 million in operational savings across 12 supply chain projects, it gives them a hard signal that you produce evidence-based outcomes. And this is where most candidates lose out. They'll pay a professional CV agency to rewrite their CV, and sometimes it's 3 or 4 figures. And then the agency just rewrites the language. They keep it all soft and polished and abstract. No numbers in the summary. No numbers even in the bullets, just clean prose. And the candidate is still getting rejected, and then they just wonder why. So the fix is to open your summary with your strongest quantified result. So whatever moved the needle most in your career, that's what goes first. Now the third finding was the one-page rule, which is what I said at the beginning of this video. So the 2+ pages get 48% more interviews than the 1 page. That's 7.4% versus 5%. So if you've been told by every single career content creator on the internet to fit your CV onto 1 page, the data says they're wrong. Now there is one exception. If you're 3 to 9 years into your career, or maybe like a mid-career, the 1 page still wins. And that's mostly because the volume of relevant experience is small enough that 2 pages would just do padding. But for everyone else, whether that's early in your career or 10 years of experience, 2 pages is the right move. So if you've been deleting bullets to fit on 1 page, stop doing that. That's leaving interview rates on the table. The smart move is to expand into 2 pages and use the room to show depth on each role. Now the mistake that most candidates make is treating the CV length like a moral cap. There isn't. Recruiters don't care about the page. They care about whether they can scan your CV in 6 to 10 seconds and find what they're looking for. So if 2 pages helps them do that, 2 pages wins. So now moving on to finding number 4, which is education. And this one is a little bit of a curveball. So master's degrees and MBAs interview at about 7.92%, doctorates at 7.96%, and then bachelor degrees about 5.92%. So a postgrad qualification gives you about a 1.3x lift over the bachelor's. But let's be honest, like the gap is not huge. And the cost of getting a master's, it costs upwards of 50K a year to get one. That's just a pure loss, and it isn't worth that extra 1.34x. What this finding actually tells you is that if you've already got a postgrad qualification, then lead with it. Put it in your CV. Make sure the recruiter sees it in that 6-second scan. Now, if you don't have one, don't go and get one just for that. Your time and money are better spent on tailoring and bullet depth. These are the rules that matter way more. So now the 5th finding is certifications. The certification industry runs on the idea that stacking them is what gets you hired. The data says that it's just not true. 2 certifications is roughly the peak. 3 or more doesn't help, and going from 0 to 1 only moves it about 1/4 of a percentage point. The reality is that hiring managers care about 1 or 2 specific certifications, and there's ones their team actually uses day to day. So if you're going into a data role and AWS or Tableau are mentioned in the job description, those are the 2 to have. Not Six Sigma, not Prince 2, not the 8 other badges you've been told to collect. Pick the 1 or 2 your target hiring manager actually cares about, put those on your CV, and drop everything else. So finding number 6 is then the bullets, and this is where I see a lot of people getting it wrong in a really specific way. So CVs with 1 to 5 bullets total, they interview at about 4.94%. At 6 to 10 bullets, you're at 6.64%. At 21 to 30 bullets, you're at 7.92%. And at 30 or more bullets, you're upwards at 8.57%. There's a strong relationship between the bullet count and the interview rate. But more bullets isn't actually the lesson. The lesson is depth. So the sweet spot is 3 to 5 bullets per role. That's about 150 characters each. So if a CV has 3 roles and then there's 5 bullets in each, that lands you at about 15 bullets. So a longer tenured candidate with 5 to 6 roles ends up with 25 to 30. That's the band the data rewards. And the depth bit really matters. A bullet that just says responsible for managing supplier relationships is the kind of thing that gets you rejected. Whereas a bullet point that says led negotiations with 14 tier 1 suppliers across UK and EU, securing 2.3 million in cost savings and reducing average lead time by 18%, that tells a recruiter you actually drove a result. So the way I teach this in coaching is the what, how, why framework. So that's what you did, how you do it, and why you did it, and that's what matters. And the why is always a number. So that's revenue, headcount, percentage, time saved, cost reduced. Every bullet needs one. Now, finding number 7 is the U shape. And this one's interesting because it kind of tells you whether deck is stacked against you or for you. So interview rates by years of experience aren't a flat line. They're more like a U shape. So at 0 to 1 years, you're at 4.41%. Whereas at 2 to 4 years, it drops to 3.03%. And at 5 to 9 years, you climb back up to 4.3%. And at 10 to 14 years, you're up to 5.68%. And then at 15 to 19, it's 7%. And 20 plus years is 9.2%. So the peak is at the top at the end. Now the trough is at that 2 to 4 year period, and that's the hardest hiring band. And it's caught between too junior to be senior and too senior to be junior. So hiring managers struggle to place you. And by the way, there's no ageism in this data. The older end of the curve actually does the best. So if you're sitting in that 2 to 4 year band right now, this matters a lot. And the raw numbers are against you, which means that you have to lean in harder on every other rule. So sharper tailoring, deeper bullets, stronger numbers in your summary, 2 pages instead of 1, and the data kind of already gives you a 3% baseline. So your job is to push that to 6 or 7 with the things you can control. Now the final finding is number 8, and this is about employment gaps. And this one is an absolute cliff edge. So recently unemployed, less than 3 months out, you're at a 5.74% interview rate. Currently employed, you're at 4.97%. At 6 to 12 months out, you're at 4.51%, and at 12 to 24 months, you're at 4.4%. And in the past 2 years, you're at 4.22%. And there's a counterintuitive piece here, like candidates who are just recently unemployed are actually doing better than candidates who are currently employed. And recruiters see just left a job as someone who's ready to move fast and available now. But the cliff is at 6 months, and that's when the dip starts. So once you cross it, you keep sliding. So if you're approaching the 6-month mark, take something. Anything. It could be contract work, freelance, a short-term role, even part-time. The data shows that breaking the gap matters way more than the role itself being a perfect fit. So a CV with a recent role on it, even if it isn't your dream job, outperforms a CV with a 9-month gap. So those are the 8 things. So tailor your CV to one specific target role, put a hard number in your summary, go to 2 pages unless you're 3 to 9 years in, lead with your postgrad if you have one, pick 1 or 2 certifications, not 8, write 3 to 5 bullets per role with real numbers in each one. If you're in the 2 to 4 year band, lean harder on every rule, and don't let a gap pass more than 6 months. Now, I walk through how to rebuild your CV from scratch using these rules inside the Offer Accelerator with real examples from candidates who've landed roles at JP Morgan, Deloitte, EY, and the rest. Now, the link is in the description if you want to check it out. But honestly, before you click anything, take your current CV and check it against these 8 rules. Start with the first 3, tailor it to one role, put a hard number in your summary, and rewrite each bullet so it ends with a result. So those 3 are where 80% of the interview lift happens. Fix them this week, then you'll feel the difference in your inbox by next month.